Welcome to the WiseHeart Wellness Scientistsage Sangha. And tonight we're closing out our series on touch, covering the physical touch the first night and the touch of thoughts and words the second time. And the third night tonight, we're going to talk about the touch of emotion. And so I'm going to jump right into that. We talked about a mindful, reverent touch in the beginning of all this, and it's possibly more important with emotion than anything else, because people respond differently to us, depending on the emotional energy that we are emanating. And we do emanate emotional energy. Sometimes it's calm, sometimes it's agitated, but it's always there. It comes out of our bodies around us all the time. And so the idea of it not being there is not one of the options. Everybody does it all day, all the time. I really believe that we touch each other's souls with our emotional energy. We can have that impact with words, but it's still a little bit different. With the emotional energy that emanates from your heart can go right to the soul of someone else, to their heart. And for people like myself, often we that are addicts and that we talk about doing something to feed the hole in our soul. And often that's been literally eaten away by a lot of distressed emotion around us, coming at us, coming from us, being in such a distressing emotional state too much of the time, literally eats away at your soul. And so this idea of filling the hole in our soul, what we want to fill it with is this stable emotional energy. But often we've had too much exposure too young to navigate that. So it's something I talk a lot about when I'm working with somebody who's got addiction things as well, or trauma in general. But as we learn to sort of perceive and then sort of program the energy that we want to have, we can take the normal flow of emotion that comes and use it to heal, because it should be this flowing back and forth of healing and moving and not stagnant like it is in our culture. So I'm going to talk a little more about that further on, but it really is mostly about how do I feel and integrate these things? How do I have this energy move through me and my life without feeling attacked by it? Because often we can feel attacked by it. And I'll share an example about that in a little bit. One of the things I put in the email this week was about the emotions as flow and energy. And what this person was talking about is, what if we just don't do anything about emotion? And that is a really, really great idea. It takes a lot of skill to do that, though, because often it's like we're on a sailing boat with no training. And so our boat goes like this all the time, and we don't have any idea how to keep it straight or even upright in the water, because we really don't talk about emotions in our culture like that. We box them off, and we talk sort of, don't be so emotional, like it's not some natural thing going through your body. And so that has really made it more difficult. In other cultures, they believe that emotions are coming from all sorts of places, from the sun, from the earth, from the winds. It's not taken as this personal interaction so much. And they will literally willingly clean up somebody else's emotional trash. And so there's a far bigger flow. But when we don't have that, it's not our idea of doing nothing about it is we're going to just resist feeling it, which really isn't an option either, because if your head thinks you are resisting it, your body is still taking it in. And so there's lots of measurements and research around this sort of stuff that showed all of that. But so we're just going to be with the emotion. It's going to be around, and we want to find out how to move through it. And the idea of moving with it is a similar idea about doing nothing. So we're not trying to avoid it, basically. That is the concept of doing nothing. We're not trying to make it be different. We're not trying to rationalize it away. We're not trying to explain it particularly, but we're just swimming. through it and moving along with it. And so the good emotions that come and feed our bodies, we take them in like we would take a glass of water in. And the ones that don't feed our bodies, we would reject, like we wouldn't drink, gas for the car. And so there's this naturalness to it once we move into that sort of thing. But like I say, we tend to be far ways away from that in our culture. So we'll talk a little more. The idea about one of the ideas that I work with a lot is that it's emotion, like it's energy in motion. And so it doesn't have to hold that emotion label that has so much trash with it, so much baggage. It's just energy in motion. And so when I back up and sort of see it that way, I talk a lot about emotional alchemy. Alchemy is just this surprising, amazing shift in something's makeup and changing it into something entirely different. And emotional alchemy, we can bring our presence to it, and we can bring our intention to it, and we can do that emotional alchemy. I remember my mom's funeral. We laughed so much, and we had so much fun at her funeral. And not that we weren't sad about the loss, but it was just this wonderful, wonderful alchemy. And it was shared with all the people that were there. It was an amazing experience. And then we can learn from the emotions. They're going to tell us. And in his work, Matt Lacasa, he talks about this is not a problem. It is not a detour. It is your path. These emotions are the path to move you into a new place of being. And so when we keep taking detours away from our emotions, we're not going where we're sort of suggested to go, we'll say. Because I believe in free will, but there's choices we can make along the way. If I choose to try and eat down my emotions, I'm going to go down a different path than if I choose to open up to the things and understand them and learn from them. And so some of the questions that my mentor talks to me about are things like, what does this emotion have to teach me? And it might teach me that I'm a people pleaser, or it might teach me that I get scared of things that aren't scary, and it's just an odd reaction. Or it might teach me my body's having a reaction to something that my head knows nothing about. And my head is going like, what's the big deal? Like, why are you being such a, it's crazy. And my body is having a reaction anyway. And so there's some kind of miscommunication or lack of integration between those two. There's lots and lots of things by just asking that we can find out. And it may be that ice cream is the solution sometimes. I say ask. So the idea just about emotions bring us to the points of initiation. Like, because when we're really scared, it's a great initiation place to move into a higher evolution. Or when we're really, really, really sad, it can really inform us about our lives. So many people during COVID came to these aha moments when they were locked up by themselves for long periods of time. And, we don't have to do that. We can just pay attention, be with our emotions. And that is the idea about it. We get the benefit if we allow it to touch us. And that's the touch of emotion. It sort of looks like a teenage boy at a dance, puts his hands out like this, doesn't know where to put it, kind of walks backwards, feels awkward. Most of the adult people I know have that relationship with their emotions. And so this idea of just opening and asking for guidance and asking for information and being engaged with our emotions, often it takes down the sort of almost terrifying side of it that can come up sometimes. When we feel overwhelmed, particularly, when people are overwhelmed, they really want to put the emotions back in the box. And that rarely works because you just, you put it in the box, put it in a closet, and all you hear all night is this bang, 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 bang. And, we don't get rest from it that way. So this idea of, why is this information coming to me, and what can I learn from it? And are there things that this particular experience is, asking me to look towards? My experience almost getting hit by a car a while ago, it definitely brought up a lot of different emotion. And I thought, am I really that afraid in the world? Turns out I am. So I found out there's a whole other level of fear that I want to work through. And it's so interesting. And it, could be just a leftover from that experience of a near miss, but it's taken me to some really lovely, deep, peaceful places by just looking at that emotion when it comes and moving through it instead of just writing it off to that experience. Yeah. Just a second, I put things on different pages. Yeah, the ideas from my own mentor are really about our emotions as belonging, as part of what we should be doing, just like breathing. And a lot of the work that I do with people is to help them breathe again. And when we breathe, our emotions move through our body much more easily. When we don't breathe, when people have got sort of curled forward chests, things like that, or we hold our breath in difficult circumstances, the emotions tend to get stuck in our bodies. And one of the ways that I really recommend, and I think I'm gonna do a whole session on it, is doing a body scan. And doing a body scan, like a Xerox, going down from the top of your head, all the way down like this, all the way through. And you can see emotional sort of dust bunnies in your body. And it might be in the throat, or it might be in your stomach, or it might be in your knees or your elbows or your headache. But after you get the practice of doing a body scan on a regular basis, it really is like brushing your hair and getting the knots out of it. And it is really interesting to see how much peaceful the body gets just by doing that. A lot of people that have done in-person therapy with me can, they just, well, I was going to phone you, then I just did body scans for a week and it was all gone. And it's like, perfect. You don't have to go anywhere. You don't have to pay anything. It's fabulous. But that's how much the emotion is tied to our bodies. And we can meet it and we can move through it in simple, simple ways. It doesn't have to be really explosive and really difficult. But the process of going like this with the actual idea of a scanner moves us along and doesn't let us get stuck anywhere. So we might have a particular trauma associated with our neck, but if we are moving along, we just note it. We know the feeling of it, the sensation of it, and we know the emotional tone of it. People thought I was crazy, and my knees are very angry. I'm like, okay, but we don't have to figure that out. We can just pay attention on a regular basis. My knees feeling angry? Nope, not anymore. Oh, good. It moved through. And as a therapist, I work with lots of people with trauma. And when the trauma is overwhelming, yeah, you need another person in the room or with you to help manage. But so much of it doesn't need to be managed that way. So much of it can actually just moved out by acknowledgement and acceptance and presence. And so I really encourage people to do that. And then they will find that in my faith tradition of shamanism, the idea is that all illness is spiritual illness. And emotional illnesses are rampant in our culture. The idea of overwhelming stress and just the distress that gets accumulated in the body. And then it becomes a bigger problem. But typically there's some sort of spiritual problem to begin with. It might be a betrayal, and we might have betrayed ourselves, or someone else might have betrayed us, or we may feel betrayed by our country, or all sorts of things like that. There's emotional content there. And as it's tidied up, there's so much more freedom. There is just so much more freedom from things. So it's a wonderful thing to use that. Too often what we do, and my own mentor is very clear about this. First thing she teaches when you walk into a room to talk about emotion, there is a big, big difference from releasing and sending. Releasing is great. And that goes like, I feel so mad that I could kill somebody, so I'm going to stomp my feet on the ground and let this energy out. I feel so angry I could kill somebody if my husband would just be different. And you are a horrible person because you make me feel this way. That's sending. Don't do that. Don't do it in traffic to strangers. Don't do it at home. Don't even do it to the politicians. It makes things worse. So there's lots of information here about sending and releasing, because sending puts it out on the trees and our friends and our babies and in the air in the world. It doesn't stop the problem. And there was a real big movement in psychology about catharsis. And if you just screamed and yelled, it would get out. It wore people out, but it didn't get it out. And we actually had to shut down a treatment program for young Indigenous guys because it raised so much stuff we couldn't contain it. And so there was too much, not releasing, but trying to send, just get that out and, just anywhere. And so this was a very poor choice. It can, if it is part of a cycle of releasing in a very safe and planned, conscious manner, there can be some release that way. But a lot of the time, that is part of a spiritual practice where people are going out on a vision quest or out on a time of solitude, things like that. So it needs to be set in the right setting to work effectively. One of the other things in our culture, people really come up to you and go, I need to share my truth with you. And I would yell, don't do it, don't do it. Because in approach that way, again, it's sending. I feel uncomfortable. And I think if I give it to you, I will feel better. That is very different than can I discuss how I'm feeling about something with you? Very different experience here. And so whatever words you use, check in here to see if you're just trying to get it out of you or if you are in this flow back and forth, because there's a big difference. There are things that need to be said. It doesn't mean you never speak up about someone's emotional splashing on you. That's okay to approach people about. But we take care of our own first. And often we take care of our own. The other person has no place to cling to us, and it literally falls away. While we are engaged back and forth, the energy stays tied together. There's a practice of cord cutting that most energy workers, regardless of the background or foundation, work with. And they literally have found there's energy cords tied between people, perpetrators and victims, family members, people that have witnessed things that are difficult to see, just all sorts of energy cords like that. And you can actually look on YouTube and find many, many just lovely energy cord cutting examples. And I think it's really great to do. I often do it when I finish something. When I was working in a different kind of job for a bit, when I left there, I did that because I didn't know what kinds of things might be clinging on. And so it's just a sort of like brushing your teeth kind of event to separate those kind of strings of other people's emotions or other energies in the world that might have caught on to you. So just good emotional hygiene. Let me check our time. So what I want to move into right now is just a practice that is, it's sort of part of the body scan thing, but it's a little more shamanically inspired, because in shamanism, there's something called dismemberment that people go through a lot. And it sounds a little, people go, but really what it is literally considering your body and doing that sort of body scan idea of the emotion in it. You might notice some areas, but then literally you allow your body to be disintegrated. And it's called dismemberment because it happens in lots of different ways for people when they go into a shamanic meditation or shamanic journey and ask for an experience of dismemberment. It literally is like sometimes somebody will be swallowed by a snake, or somebody else will be, torn apart by a bear, or somebody will fall off a cliff and be smashed to bits slightly, or burn up in a fire and blow away as dust, or any number of things that would literally let us be dismembered. And then we call ourselves home and we start again, all clean and tidy and new. And that shifting is really coming back to our spiritual self that hasn't picked up any of those emotional threads, either that we have generated or someone else has generated, or the situation in the world has generated for us. But literally, because it is completely dismembered to our original light, then we are just that light again and start over. Sort of like growing a new body. Actually, it's really great for your health too. So what I'm going to do is invite you to do that. Feel free to ignore any instructions I give you that don't feel good to you. Okay? So take what you like and leave the rest. What we're going to do is we're going to just take a few breaths and then scan a little bit, and then invite in this dismemberment, this releasing process. And then sometimes people use their own imagination, they choose, and sometimes they just stay open and something shows up. Okay? So you can do whichever you like. But always the prerequisite here is breathe. So that's where we start. Just get comfortable. And literally that slow, deeper body breathing is to allow your emotions to know they can let go. Thanks very much. I can be absolutely confident that whatever emotion that leaves that I may need to hang out with again will come back to me in other ways, in other days. So just keep that deep, slow breathing as we go through this, regardless of what happens. And trust that your body and your spirit know what is good for you right now. How it might appear to you, how you might experience this. And just relax down into your body. From nose to toes, let yourself just be in your body. And you might find more emotions come up as you actually inhabit your body. I like the idea of steam coming off my body, and my emotions are literally evaporating. And I cool off as they leave, and I lighten up as they leave. And I calm down as all of that leaves. And it might just feel like a cool breeze blowing it away from you. And then if you want to, you can ask for some further cleansing and releasing. From whatever you believe in, from the flow of the universe to a particular faith icon, power animal if you have one. Just ask, how can I release all of the emotion from my body that doesn't need to be with me? How can I clear all the extraneous emotion and just return for a moment to that pure light of being, my essence? Letting go of this lifetime's body conversations. Continue that slow, deep breathing. And I'm just going to be quiet for a few moments to let your imagination or your spirit inform you, and to allow it to take away all that you want to release. Okay, I'm going to invite you to come back. And you might just inhabit that pure essence. And if you feel anything was unfinished, please feel free to go back and do this many times a day if you want. And I hope that I've convinced you that if you don't allow emotion to touch you, then you don't really allow life to touch you. And that you can do this and have it move out and leave you more present and pleasant. And if you haven't allowed a lot of emotion in for a long time, it can feel like there's a lot of unpleasant in there a lot. I encourage this kind of meditation to get right to the other end of it. And then you'll know that that is the outcome. And really, we can have as our aspiration to just be present in the flow of life as it is. Not to fight any of it, not to hang on overly to the good things, to not fight off the bad things, but just to be present, taking it all in, letting it all move through us and evolve us as we are on our path. Okay, I'm going to close off for the people that are watching it later. I'll remind you that this is a live recording from the Scientistsage Sangha, and we run Tuesday nights at 5 p.m. Mountain Standard Time for everybody that isn't here with me. And you feel free to drop in and join us. It is just by donation to the scientistsage@gmail.com. And we would love to have you. And please feel free to send questions or comments or ideas that you'd like to talk about to the same email of scientistsage@gmail.com. Thank you. I am with you. You are with me. Blessed be. Good night.